Hey there, everyone. We're going to get into this. This is the final Timer Tip Tuesday of 2020, and this does wrap up our fall series as well of a little bit longer Timer Tip Tuesdays. And so today it's myself and Kevin going over RaceJoy monitoring systems. So as with all of these Timer Tip Tuesdays for the fall series, we're going to just again do a very cursory review of the hybrid approach. I know you guys are well versed in it at this point. We're then going to go into RaceJoy setup and uses. Again, this is just a review. We're not going to go into how to set everything up. If you do need a refresher on any of that, then reach out to either myself or Kevin, and we can give you some training documents or help answer any questions. We're going to go through why you should monitor, and then Kevin is going to go into diving into the monitoring panel and how to troubleshoot issues. And then I'm going to come back and just talk about some timer tools and real-world applications of all this. So you have seen these slides before. I am not going to spend lots of time on them. The hybrid approach is having an on-site virtual and/or challenge event. We did an entire virtual symposium, like a mini symposium last week on it. We've talked about this weekly. But with rising COVID rates, this is going to be your best plan of attack, at least into the early 2021. So just keep that in mind, especially now when you're speaking with your race directors about what you can and should be doing to set up and prepare for early next season and maybe even on into middle of next season. This is going to be the approach that has the most benefit, just because it makes you to some degree cancellation proof, as you have a fallback plan and you're giving value to the athletes that are participating. So just again, very, very quickly, your on-site type is your defined course. You can both do this timed in person or with a defined course in RaceJoy. You have your virtual race anywhere. That is quite literally, they can run anywhere using RaceJoy and still publish results. And then you have your virtual challenge. It's a little bit more complicated setup. You can use RaceJoy for this submission. And Matt Avery did a great webinar on how to set up your challenges and badges and things like that. So with that being said, we're going to jump straight into the how to monitor RaceJoy. So first thing we're going to go through is setup and uses. Again, we're not going to dive deep. We know that most of you guys are very familiar with how to set it up, but just in case. So with RaceJoy setup, you're going to create an event for all courses that are wanting a virtual result or need a route option in RaceJoy. And this goes for Race Anywhere event options and any on-site course options. So if you have multiple courses, you will need multiple events set up in the Race Wizard. And so just keep that in mind, especially if you are the timer. If they're asking for multiple courses, there is a chance you're going to need to ask the race director to create additional events in the Race Wizard so you can set courses to those. You can hide these from registration. We've gone over that setup in length. And those events do not have to be open for registration. I did put a little screen grab here because as of, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but there is an update in where you find RaceJoy. It's no longer in between Race Day tools and participants. It's moved back under the Race Day tool tab. So just keep that in mind. Don't panic if you're going in and looking for RaceJoy. You're going to go underneath Race Day tools, and it is underneath that section. You still have all of your options underneath here. So just again, it is no longer on the main page. It is underneath Race Day tools. So a quick reminder on the setup, you do have to make sure your event type, if you're going to be doing a virtual race challenge event, is set to virtual race challenge. So any event that you want results to post out of RaceJoy automatically to RunSignup, you do have to have this event type set to virtual race or challenge. You do have to set the event date and time. This is not optional. This is now done in the virtual challenge result setup. and this establishes the tracking period for RaceJoy. So if those dates and times are wrong in your virtual result setup, then they're going to be wrong for usage of RaceJoy. And then the distance for each event is set on step 2 of the Race Wizard. So you do need to make sure that all these are accurate. So the result side, these are participant submitted results, and this comes as an auto submission of user GPS results through RaceJoy. I know you've heard us say this a million times, but participants must register for the event and enter the bib number for results. So just keep that in mind. If they don't know what their bib number is, it's not going to push out. So I would strongly advise you to set up some sort of either email notification or auto email notification when bibs are assigned. And again, we've talked about that in length. If you need help with that, just let me know. But that is something that they must know if you're wanting to submit users to submit results through RaceJoy. And Kevin will give you some tips on helping people that invariably you're going to have some athletes that don't pay attention and don't enter their bib numbers correctly. And so the mobile results must be enabled. So that's this button right here. That's under the RaceJoy setup. Your RunSignup virtual results must be configured. Again, we've gone through at length on how to set that up. And like we just talked about, bib numbers must be assigned and communicated. So as we've said previously, each option is a different race. You need to treat it as such. So virtual races, you're usually pushing results up through RaceJoy or manual submission. Challenge could be, well, challenge is one of the two as well. On site, the assumption is that your results are coming from timing equipment. And so if you're on-site timed event, your event type is not going to be set to virtual or challenge, because our assumption is you're going to actually have timed results pushing up. And with all these setups, just keep in mind that, again, we've talked about compensation and things like that. I would strongly advise you to set your billing out so that you're actually compensated for the work you're doing on these virtual events. We've talked, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but just making sure that it's clearly defined what the result sets mean and how to set those up, and ordering them appropriately so it makes sense to the athlete when they're looking through. So if it's timed results, think about putting the word timed in. If it's virtual on course, maybe rename it to virtual on course, and if it's virtual race anywhere, put that into the title. So it's very, very clear what the result sets and the order that they're looking at. So with these configurations, you may have to adjust or merge result sets. That's all done within the virtual results configuration. The same goes for the challenge events. There are more complex settings there, like milestone badges and how things sort. All of that is done on that same virtual results configurations. And there are how-to supports, or you could reach out and just request a quick review or setup. So, and just a reminder, we've said this over and over, a lot of the requests that we get from athletes revolves around RaceJoy not being available for all events. So it's our opinion that if you're setting up RaceJoy for one event, you should strongly consider setting up RaceJoy for all events, so all athletes have the same experience. So if you do have like a race anywhere option and a course option, consider adding RaceJoy for both of those. And this is just a little image down here of those courses. So you can see a 5K on course, a fun run, and the fun run is just set to race anywhere. It's a simple setup. It doesn't take you too much time. So now the kids have the same opportunity. And yeah, they might be running with their parents' phone or their parents and the parents' phone, but it gives them that same experience. And then the race anywhere is also set. The 5K race anywhere is set to race anywhere. And all of these are certified with the same tracking periods. So some of the uses, just a reminder for those of you that haven't used RaceJoy in a while for a live walk run, just a reminder that your event type will be set to like cycling or run walk or something like that, not virtual. So in these cases, RaceJoy does not publish results. So that's something that you need to remember. It's assumed that that scenario that the chip timing will take place for results. However, it does provide a great communication path to athletes, engages spectators, gives you a way to push out information about sponsors, cheers, things like that. For your virtual race anywhere, your event type is going to be set to virtual race or challenge. In this scenario, there's no course defined. So RaceJoy does publish results. It's still a great communication path. And one of the big things here that I think is great is you have distance-based cheers. So you can set out, when they hit 1 mile or 2 mile, cheering them along. The virtual race on course, again, it's going to be a virtual race challenge event type, and it's going to have an uploaded defined course in place. It does publish results, and one of the big benefits here is it helps you with off-course alerts, which most of the time your on-course virtual races are not staffed. You might have signs up, but it just helps you keep athletes on course and enjoying their experience. And instead of distance-based cheers, you have geo-based cheers because you can actually put where on the course that cheer is going to be. A number of events have used water stop ahead or turn around ahead, that kind of thing. Which again, it makes the athlete feel like they're more in the event, which is what we're going for. So why you should monitor? And for some of you, this makes complete sense. For others, this might be a novel thing. Number one, you're ensuring that everything is working properly, that results are posting to RunSignup as they should. There's no errors or issues with the course or courses. And that when you're looking at athletes, you can click on their dots and you can see that they have bib numbers assigned. And so it's our expectation, and it's the event's expectation as well, that certified timers do have some level of quality control. And so, you're expected, you're being paid to do this. So consider being proud of the results that are pushing up and making sure that that data is as clean as it possibly can be. And then also, if you're combining this data for chip time results verification, it's super important to make sure that everything's running smoothly. And we've said this before, but I really do think it's a great take-home message, and that is you wouldn't go to a race and put down timing mats and never check to see if everything was running correctly. So don't do the same with RaceJoy. Again, you're being paid you're being paid to do this service, and you should stand behind it. And basically what we're going to be going through and what Kevin's going to cover, I believe it's the next slide, is going into the tools that you have at your disposal to monitor these type of things. And so you're already doing this kind of thing with your chip time results. So we're now giving you the tools to monitor, review, correct, problem solve with RaceJoy data as well. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to Kevin.
Perfect. Can you see my screen? All right.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna kind of say before we kind of dive into everything is kind of moving forward. A lot of these questions, like very general race questions in terms of like results and bibs and t-shirts and stuff like that coming from the app, they will be directed to you guys. And so what we want to do is we wanted to make sure you guys know how to answer these types of questions. And basically what we're going to do is basically teach you guys how to troubleshoot and kind of how to diagnose issues, right? So before we get into that, the first thing I wanted to do was kind of go over monitoring and kind of all the menu items in the monitoring view. In our training, we did touch on this, but not to the extent that we're going to be doing today. So I wanted to do like a quick review of everything that's there and some of the new things that we've kind of added. Obviously, you can see a list here, but I'd rather show you guys kind of what there is. So again, the monitoring view is under Race Day Tools, RaceJoy Monitoring. and then you just click on race day monitoring. Remember that for each course, you'll have to toggle to each specific course. So when I monitor, I like to have multiple tabs open for each course. So in this case, I would have 6 tabs open for this particular race. If you select course actions, you can view and search for participants. So here you can view the name, the bib, the team name, their last timing point, the last date and time of their last update, kind of their platform, their version number. And then if you want to add them to your view, you can select add there, and then you can just select delete, and that'll remove them from your view. You can also, if you select add filtered for everyone, that'll add everyone to your map. So if there was people active, it would just basically add everyone onto your map. So you can see all those gray dots kind of pop up. It's gray right now because everyone is inactive and this race is over. But if this race was going on right now, you would see a lot of blue dots. So to remove all of those, you can just select remove tracked, and that'll remove everyone from your view. We have this new feature that came out a couple months ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, this click to. So if you wanted to look into Kristen and you wanted to get her participant marker and kind of look into her data, you can select this click to, and it'll add her to your view and automatically open up her participant marker. And then within this participant marker, you can obviously select remove participant, and that'll remove her from your view. If you select participant actions, you can use this replay path to show the route that she ran to confirm everything looks good. You can also do this live if she was running, if she was currently running, you can have route replay on, and it'll kind of show her all the route that she is currently running. You can send her a message directly if you need to, get a direct message to her. You can export her replay that she ran. And this extended data, this is something we'll be going over in a little bit, but I'll just quickly show you guys. So this is something that we opened to you guys probably in the last couple of, probably the last month or two. And if you click on extended data, basically we give you some information about the participant's device, right? We give them kind of what type of iOS or Android OS version they're running, the type of device they're using, their battery level, their carrier, their Wi-Fi, if it's on or off, and then kind of all of this data down here, these are GPS data. So if you were to ever to come into extended data and you don't see any latitude, longitude, time of day, kind of like what you're seeing here, that would mean that we never got any GPS data from that device. We'll get into kind of how you would troubleshoot and kind of what you would say to participants, but that's kind of a key marker there is if you come into extended data and there's no data here, that means there's something was wrong with their GPS on their device. So if we come back into course actions, you can select progress board, and this will give you a nice kind of progress board view of kind of what the participants are doing. So you can see like start time of day passes, mile 1 passes, and everything. So you can kind of go along and just kind of scroll to the right, and you can kind of see and make sure that everyone's getting passes kind of all the way up into the finish here. And we'll go into detail in terms of how this is used in monitoring, how this can help you diagnose any types of issues. And this is new too. You can now filter this progress board by participants that started after a certain date or finished before a certain date. You don't necessarily need to have this finished before date plugged in, but if you wanted to look at people that started maybe on Saturday and exclude people that started on Friday, you can kind of do this through that. You can also export that progress board list. If you filter it by a specific date, you can also export it, with that filtering on as well. And then obviously you can send a message to either all your participants or anyone that's currently tracked. So currently for me, I just have one participant currently tracked in my map view. So I could send it to just her. If you have any replays open, like kind of how we have here, if you can show replays for as many participants as you want. If you want to just clear everything out and kind of start over, you can come into course actions and hide replay, and that'll hide everyone's route replay that you turned on. By default, we show all active participants. You can uncheck that and then basically follow specific people. And then if you come into alerts, we'll show you any missed course alerts or any off course alerts. You can use this to help monitor and help diagnose any types of issues, but sometimes this can get a little cumbersome. So I've got other techniques that I'll be showing you guys in terms of how to monitor and how to find issues and make sure everything looks good. And then obviously you can click into each marker and see the passes, and you can add those participants from there as well. So if you wanted to add, Shelly, Nicholas, Rick, you just hit add for those 3, and then they'll be added to your view here. This is also a good way to make sure everyone's getting passes, every marker is getting passes, and participants are properly getting an alert at those markers.
And Kevin, on that point, just real briefly, can you click on the extra timing point that Chris had added on the Richmond Marathon down there? Like go down around 5K. Yep. So again, as Chris talked about, the GPS data can be used as extra verification data, and there is an export on here. You can export this data and actually bring it into your scoring software as a file and streamed file, and we've got that set up so it has kind of a standard format, bib, and passing time. And so this is kind of an easy way to bring in extra data if you wanted to, especially if you're doing that kind of on-time scored event. We also provide that ability to get that data out of the system.
Yep. Okay, I think that's all I've got in terms of general monitoring view. So now let's kind of dive into how to monitor and how to troubleshoot essentially. So the first scenario I'm going to show you guys talk about is going to be standard courses that are non-virtual. So these are going to be the live in-person races that you'll be kind of using your timing equipment and also allowing participants to use RaceJoy and track and get alerts and stuff like that. So with this scenario, a live in-person course option, you can use, what you'll want to do is you want to use your route replay to track leaders to ensure course accuracy. So when monitoring for these live races, you're really monitoring to make sure that the course is right. You're monitoring to make sure that the participants are running the right course and they're getting all of the correct alerts at each of the mile markers or any custom audio cues that you've set up. So what I like to do is I like to turn off the show active, and once participant, well, I'll keep the show active on, and once participants hit mile 1, I'll uncheck show active and I'll just add maybe my first 5 to 10 runners that get to mile 1 in RaceJoy first. So basically I'm tracking my RaceJoy leaders, and then I'll turn on route replay for maybe 1 or 2 of my further up ahead leaders, I guess. And so what that does is that gives you a good glimpse as to what the rest of the field is going to be doing, right? So your leaders are going to be telling you if there's any issues, if everything looks good, and so they'll give you kind of like a preview of what the rest of the field is going to be doing. So that's kind of what I like to do. I like to track, the first 5 or 10 runners, turn on route replay for those runners, and kind of just watch making sure their orange line matches up with the green line. Another thing that I like to do and would also recommend is before the race gets going, obviously you guys are creating the map, so you guys kind of know the courses pretty well. You want to make sure you keep track of any problem areas and closely monitor those sections. So really those problem areas are kind of like your turnaround markers or any proximity, kind of if you drop the proximity on a certain marker and you just want to make sure everything looks good there. What I like to do is before a race, I'll usually make a note and say, on the half marathon course, I got to be ready for, there's a turnaround at, mile 4, between 4 and 5. I just want to make sure that that looks good and make sure that the participants run all the way to that specific turnaround marker. And the next type of technique that I like to do when I'm monitoring is just making sure that the rest of the field looks good, right? So obviously you're tracking your leaders, you've got the route replay on. I like to use the progress boards and just kind of go through all the data and just kind of make sure that the rest of the field looks good. The progress board gives you a really good overview, and you can basically see if everyone's getting a miss at mile 3, what's going on here, right? So then you can add that particular participant, use their route replay to see why is this participant getting a miss at mile 3. So that gives you a good, nice overview of what's going on in the race. I've seen where the leaders do one thing, and for whatever reason, the back half of the runners, they do a totally different thing. So it's always good to just like check in on your progress boards and kind of scroll into the middle, bottom half of your progress board and just make sure, they're going well as well. And so now you're monitoring your race, you're using your route replay on your leaders, and something happens, right? So what I want to show you guys is how to troubleshoot any types of issues for these non-virtual course options. And so typically, these issues are going to be map related issues. They're not necessarily going to be like users having result questions, right? So these types of map related issues, they could be, maybe a last minute course change that wasn't reflected in the RaceJoy maps. Runners made a wrong turn, or maybe a volunteer sent them down on the wrong turn or something like that. Or maybe the runners didn't run all the way down to the turnaround marker, right? So like if any of these situations happen, what should you do? And so if there's any types of path errors, obviously you can go into whatever map making tool you have, or in RaceJoy you can edit the path. And so you can edit the path, load it back into RaceJoy, and save the map. When you save the map, all the changes will get processed and passed along onto all the devices. But that could be a little cumbersome, right? That could take 5 or 10 minutes. And if it's like a 5K race, maybe 60-70% of the field could have gone by that point already, and now 70% of people didn't get an alert at mile 1. So what I like to do is I like to just, if they make a wrong turn, I like to just move the mile markers into the correct locations. If it's like a one turn issue. So if we were to look at this example here in this screenshot on the right-hand side, the green line obviously is the path the participant should be running. And you can see that they should be reaching mile 1 in that bottom right-hand corner of the course here. The orange line represents what the runners are actually running. So you can see they didn't run into that bottom right-hand corner, and they made a left and then a right, and then they got back onto the course. So if you're monitoring and you're seeing your leaders, you're looking at your leaders route replay, and you see this happen and you start seeing everyone do this, what I would do is I would just go into your RaceJoy map setup, and I would just click on mile 1 and just move it right around where I think 1 mile is based on the path that they are running. So I would move it kind of pretty much onto maybe that first intersection on that left turn towards that dead end street, save my map, and that'll basically move the mile marker for on everyone's devices that's using RaceJoy at the moment. The idea is that you don't want to take a lot of time and try to make the path change, load it in and save it and everything like that. You just want to make the participants are getting the mile alerts. So you just want to move that mile marker over, save it, and then call it a day. The same concept would apply for when you're looking at those kind of problem areas, which is like a turnaround issue. If you set up a turnaround marker at the end of a turnaround and participants aren't actually running that far down, you're going to want to basically just move that marker back. So I don't have a screenshot of that, but I'll kind of show you what I mean here. So if you look at this portion of the course here, there's some turnaround markers added here. So if I'm monitoring my leaders and I know that they need to get, let's call this, they need a turnaround marker they need to pass this turnaround marker in order for 25 to get an alert. If I'm seeing that runners are only running like right here and they turn around, I would just go into my RaceJoy map setup and just move that marker all the way back to where I know everyone's going to be hitting. And this is kind of why in our training it depends on, it kind of depends on the situation and if you know your course very well, but we do like to kind of have turnaround markers, not necessarily right at the corner and right at the edge of the turnaround, but we kind of like to move it a little further back. This basically will guarantee that all the participants will hit that turnaround marker, get a pass at the turnaround marker, and then they'll be able to get a pass at the next sequenced marker. So again, if you know that there's a turnaround here and you know that they're going to be getting here maybe in the next 5 minutes, I would kind of just keep this area locked in and use that route replay and just make sure that they go all the way down to that turnaround marker. If they don't, again, just move that marker up, hit save on your map, and that reloads everything onto all your participants' devices. And that's the quick, easy way to solve those types of issues. And really, those are kind of the big issues that you'll really see in terms of non-virtual in-person races. It's just making sure the course is good, and then if something goes wrong, just move the mile markers into the correct location, save it, and then kind of the next day come back, process, and see kind of what happened and then everything like that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how to monitor like a Race Anywhere virtual or a challenge event. The key difference between monitoring a virtual Race Anywhere type of event versus an in-person coursed race is you're not monitoring to make sure the course is right. You're monitoring to make sure tracking is working. And obviously we can't use any route replay or anything like that since there's no course associated with the Race Anywhere option. And so really you want to be using your progress boards. So you want to use your progress boards to make sure that everyone's getting, a start pass, a mile one pass, so on and so forth, and they're getting all the way to the finish, right? So you want to make sure that all your participants are getting a finish pass, and you can just view that through your progress boards. It's a nice overview to kind of see everything. The second thing that you're doing in terms of monitoring with a Race Anywhere and virtual style race is you want to make sure that the results are getting submitted from RaceJoy to RunSignup. So, if your first person is, you see that you have someone doing a Race Anywhere, they're the first person to run it, and you see that they got a pass at the finish through your progress boards, go to your RunSignup result page and then just go into the results and make sure that they have a result that was submitted to RunSignup. And obviously, I'll show you guys in terms of how to troubleshoot those types of issues, but we have added some kind of hint messages in the participant marker. So on the screenshot on the right-hand side, if you open up this particular participant's marker, you can see in the red, there's a result successfully submitted to RunSignup message now. So that gives you a nice indication as well that the results was successfully submitted, everything worked well, bib was properly entered and everything like that. We will give you a message that says, there was an issue with the result, check the bib number or something like that. And we'll go over that shortly as well. So again, when you're monitoring any type of Race Anywhere, virtual type of event, the goal is to make sure that the tracking is working, right? So you can take a look at your progress boards and just kind of make sure everyone's getting a pass all the way through the race. So I'm gonna kind of break down these types of troubleshooting issues into another kind of two subcategories here. I'm going to first talk about general user troubleshooting issues that you're going to see. These questions can also be associated with anyone using RaceJoy for an in-person live event. And then I'll break it down into more specific virtual Race Anywhere types of troubleshooting. So the first troubleshooting kind of question that we see a lot is, I can't get tracking to work or tracking stopped mid-race. So if you get a question like this, what do you do? How can you troubleshoot this and figure out what's causing any type of error here? So the first thing I would do is I would just make sure that your tracking periods are correctly set to allow participants to use RaceJoy. So for any non-virtual courses, your tracking period is derived from the start and end date of the event in step 1 of the wizard. And as Chris mentioned earlier, for virtual courses, the tracking period is from this result submission window from the RunSignup virtual result setup. We also give you like a little hint as well. If you go into the RaceJoy course setup, we also have added this tracking period. Hopefully you guys have all seen this. And this will give you a good indication as well in terms of kind of what the tracking period is looking like. So maybe you get an email on October 28th from a participant that says, hey, I'm trying to use RaceJoy for the AK Anywhere. It's not letting me do anything. Or, it's not letting me start my race. Nothing is working. What's going on? Well, you can come into your course setup and just take a look at the tracking period. You can see that the tracking period is going to be starting on the 1st of November. So then you can let that participant know that, hey, tracking will be open in 2 days. You can start the race in RaceJoy on the 1st of November. So that's one kind of route to take to always look into. And so the other type of kind of what would cause any type of tracking issue is a depleted battery, or if you have a device with Wi-Fi that's on, will cause tracking issues. So again, you can use that extended data in the participant marker to view those device settings. And I'll kind of go over that really quickly again for you. And again, this extended data stuff wasn't really open for you guys until probably the last couple of weeks. So this is fairly new stuff as well. So if you come into participant actions, you open up the participant marker, participant actions, and then extended data. Hit done. And so here you can see the battery level, you can see the Wi-Fi state. And so, throughout, you can see their battery level throughout the time they were using RaceJoy, right? So they started at 95% and they worked their way down to about 30% by the time they finished. And when they turned off RaceJoy, their battery level was at 14. So this will also give you a good indication as to what's going on, right? So if you see a Wi-Fi state on, that could, you can let the participant know, hey, you're going to want to turn off your Wi-Fi to make sure all of your GPS data is working well. And we do prompt participants in the app and say like, hey, your Wi-Fi is on, or you don't have this setting turned on. But the issue is a lot of participants, they kind of just scroll through those and click next through those kind of pop-up warnings that we have. So you do get a lot of these types of issues where maybe a certain setting is incorrectly set up. So you can use this extended data again to see if their Wi-Fi is on, check their battery level. And so if you've done that, right, you've checked your tracking period, everything looks good on the tracking period, their battery level is good, their Wi-Fi is off. Really, the last thing you want to check and ask the participant is to make sure that they have their specific location services and background app refresh settings done and set up correctly. Right now, we don't have any type of like chart showing you exactly what their device setting is on this. A lot of privacy issues associated with that. So this is something that you're gonna have to just ask the participant and say like, hey, what is your location services settings, or what is your background app refresh? So for these two settings, the participant will always want to have their location services set to always on, and they want to have background app refresh to be on for the device. And so the issue now in terms of these two specific settings is a lot of privacy, kind of privacy related issues. So obviously in the last couple of years, privacy laws have taken kind of made things a lot stricter, which is great, right? Because obviously everyone wants privacy on their device. But basically in terms of how that correlates and how that affects RaceJoy is that we need the participants' settings to be done correctly, right? So we need them to have these location services set to always on. We need them to have background app refresh on. So you always want to make sure that those two settings are on. I would say for the most part, if you've kind of tried step 1 and step 2 and everything looks good, I would say 99% of the time, they don't have these two settings set up correctly. So that's kind of your last troubleshooting. If someone says, hey, tracking didn't work or stopped working, have them check, kind of go through these 3 steps and make sure everything looks good there.
And just to clarify, again, this is a fast moving area, again, with privacy. It's now while using, and both Apple and Android have kind of modified that language a little bit. It's not always on, it's actually while using. So again, it changes every year. Every new release of iOS that comes out, every new release of Android is going to be constantly kind of changing the language and also the privacy settings. So again, it's a very fast changing area. What we recommend is that you use RaceJoy out on RaceJoy Rocks and kind of understand these settings and you know what the prompts are. But yeah, it's really kind of moving into more of like a while using type language.
Yep. And so the next general user troubleshooting kind of questions that you'll probably see a lot as well is something like, you know, I accidentally entered in the incorrect bib number prior to the race. You know, how do I change that or how do I update that? And so it's pretty simple for the participants to do. From the race homepage within RaceJoy, they can click in that upper middle portion where it says participant and then like your name and everything like that. They can click on that to update their profile, which will allow them to update their bib number. They can also click on the bottom right-hand corner if they select more and then profile. They'll also be able to accomplish the same task there as well. Another use case in terms of basically updating your profile is we sometimes will get questions from participants that maybe a mom wants to run, you know, on Monday and use RaceJoy for the 5K, and a daughter or son wants to use that same device and run the same race on Tuesday. So obviously we don't allow for multiple participants using the same phone at the same time to track and kind of post results and everything like that. So what they can do is, you know, the mom can run on Monday, set up their profile, and then start their race and everything like that. And then on Tuesday, the son or daughter can basically follow the same steps outlined here, right? They can click on the participant or they can click more in profile, and they'll be able to update their profile and change it to the son's or daughter's information. And then they'll be able to run their own race and be able to post the results for their own run to RunSignup. So that's kind of what they would do in terms of how they would edit their profile. And so the last thing now we're going to talk about and is going to be talking about how to troubleshoot kind of Race Anywhere virtual course user questions. So for the most part, these types of questions are result related. And so we're going to kind of cover these things as well. So the first issue is if you get a question that says, I use RaceJoy and received all the proper alerts, but my results did not submit to RunSignup. So the first thing I would do if you were to get this question, so basically it sounds like RaceJoy worked, GPS was good, so I don't have to worry about any of that GPS data stuff or anything like that. I got to look into why results didn't get posted. So the first thing I would do is you just want to make sure that they enter the right bib number. It's as Chris mentioned, you know, they have to enter in the correct bib number. And so you can use the red hint messages that I mentioned earlier in the participant marker to kind of throw you in kind of the right direction here. So you can see in the screenshot here, it says result submission failed to RunSignup, check bib. And so if I were to look up this particular participant here, oops, see if I can find here. So here is kind of what it looks like within the monitoring view. So you can see all of our data looks good, but there's this failed to post results. So kind of what's going on here. So if I search for bib 1111, there's nothing there, right? And then if I search for her name, you can see that she was assigned bib 11 in RunSignup. So the issue here was that she entered in the incorrect bib number. So she should have entered 11, but she entered 1,111. So that was the reason why she didn't get results posted. So something else as well that can cause some type of result error is making sure that your alternate event is properly checked on. This is pretty key if you've got like a 5K course option and like a 5K anywhere option, and you only have all of your participants registering for the course associated with the event for the 5K course option. You just want to make sure that alternate event is properly checked on to allow those participants to be able to do the race anywhere option. So just make sure that the bib number is entered in correctly and that the alternate events is checked on to allow this particular participant to be able to do and post results against that specific course. And so the last scenario that I'll run you guys through is if you were to get this type of question, right? I never got any alerts, no results was pushed up to RunSignup, and this is from a participant with bib 2096. So there's a couple ways to go about this. Obviously, the first one is when you hear someone that says, I never got any alerts, you're thinking, all right, there's some type of GPS data, maybe there's some type of phone settings wrong, which caused her to have no results pushed up. So if I were to look into bib 2096, right, for this 5K anywhere, hit this click 2. And so there's basically, we give you the answer right here. It says participant did not start. So in this particular case, the participant never hit the green start my race button, and so we never tracked her and never kind of did anything for her since she never selected start. So again, this is kind of a good way to show you kind of these red hint messages that we try to send to you guys and kind of push you guys in the right direction here. If you wanted to, you could look into her extended data, and you can see, there's also her Wi-Fi was on, battery level looked good. We were getting some GPS data there, but again, the main issue is that she just never hit start. So when you get any questions from participants, the first thing you want to do is kind of just go into their data and just kind of make sure everything looks good. And then again, we try to throw hints to you guys to make sure that we can point you in the right direction. And that kind of covers the most common types of questions that we see from users that hopefully you guys will be able to know how to solve and kind of know how to resolve those types of issues. If you do get questions from participants and you've kind of gone through everything and you've looked into everything and you still aren't sure of how to resolve that question, just send us an email at info@racejoy.com, and then we can also help you guys out. So we're there for you guys in case you can't solve anything, but hopefully you guys will be able to solve most of the questions kind of as you kind of gain experience through this. And that's all I have.
Right on. So I'm going to go through just a couple of little things here at the end just to wrap things up. One of which is just, the screen monitoring here is just a reminder that, you should be looking at this during your race. So please make sure this is a screen that you have up. You likely have, your hardware, your scoring software, and then just think of RaceJoy as an additional scoring software if you're doing a virtual or race anywhere type of event. And so some considerations to think about here is, one, utilizing the data to improve the event timing. One, you can double check that athletes actually did complete courses, especially if you have some results that are possibly like out of scope of what you would expect to experience. So maybe you have a normal-ish time, like a 17-minute 5K that wins the race, but then you realize that maybe the age group wouldn't normally put down a 17-minute 5K. So you can go back and look at that data to see if they actually completed the entire course. If you have multiple scenarios where, like a lot of racing now is going to be an open start finish line, so you're timing with a gap factor. And so people might come back to the start finish after the fact and like cheer somebody on, and they might meet the gap factor multiple times. So if you're in race day scoring, that's called, you can search for those different gap factors in the ambiguous times button. But in this regard, you can go and look at the progress board to determine which gap actually met their run. Meaning, you can determine by their use of RaceJoy as to which time you should actually select in the gap factors. And then also, we've talked about this before, but you can backfill any missed splits with GPS timing data by adding on-course cues. And these are non-audio points that Kevin pointed out from a race that I helped out with a few months ago, or a month ago. You can also utilize the data to improve event production. Granted, you're the timer, but even being the timer, so much of your time is spent helping a race director manage the event day. So if you've got splits out on course, whether it be regular timing splits or RaceJoy timing splits, you're likely feeding information to the race director as to who's on the course and where they are. So instead of like a 10K course where you might have a 5K split and you can say, oh, well, all but one person's hit that 5K split. With RaceJoy, you're able to get a bit more granular and talk about, how many people are still out there that are utilizing RaceJoy, how far away they are, what the expected finish time is of the last person utilizing RaceJoy. And so you can really like boil that all down to help your race director have a better race day experience. And this can allow volunteers to pull finisher swag in advance towards the end of the day if it's a longer event day. And so they can be completely torn down, and that finisher swag's pulled just for the people still out on course. So they don't have to wait until the very, very last person. So again, it's not only making the race director's day easier, it's making the volunteers' day easier. And that same data can be used to alert traffic control when you see no more athletes at certain points. Now, obviously not everyone is utilizing RaceJoy, so you do need to be cautious about opening roads based off of RaceJoy data. But if you're combining that with timing data, you can see, you can confirm that, you don't have any missed reads at a certain point. And by becoming an expert in setting up RaceJoy, including custom cheers, ideally you're able to generate additional revenue or create completely new revenue streams for yourself, for your company. And you can also create a better race experience for not only in-person, but also virtual and hybrid races. And we've shown this next slide before, but just a reminder, other direction. So this is that same course that Kevin showed, and you can put these cues out on course. And so this Rob person never actually gets an audio notification when they hit this split that's listed in RaceJoy, but that split corresponds with a split point in race day scoring. So this data is not coming from RaceJoy into race day scoring, it's redundant. So if at any point, like we saw Rob not get a split at that location, we could theoretically pull the data from RaceJoy into our scoring software so that he doesn't have any missed splits. So that is the end of the talk for today. Are there any questions? I don't see any so far.
Good job, Santa.
Yay. Happy holidays, everybody. And thanks for joining us for all of these Timer Tip Tuesday fall series. We'll start back up with our normal Timer Tip Tuesdays, which will go back to the format of being a little bit shorter, 20 minutes and a single topic. We'll start those back up in January. So until then, let us know if you have any questions, and thanks so much for joining us. Take care.